The courtroom was silent. People filled every seat. Lawyers whispered. Reporters waited with pens ready. Even the judge looked serious. But all eyes were on one person, a small, quiet girl sitting on the witness stand. She didn't move, she didn't cry, she didn't speak. Her name was Amara, and she was only 12 years old. She had dark, tired eyes. Her clothes were clean but simple. Her small hands held tightly to a piece of paper. Her head stayed low. Everyone in the courtroom had heard the rumors how she was found alone in an old farmhouse, how she hadn't spoken a single word since police rescued her, but no one knew the full story. Not yet. The judge, a kind-looking man in his 60s, cleared his throat. He looked at Amara gently and said, "Miss Amara, do you want to tell us anything today?" Amara looked up slowly. She didn't speak, but she stretched out her hand and gave the judge the folded paper. He took it carefully. The courtroom watched as he unfolded the note. At first the judge's face stayed calm. Then, his hands started to shake. He looked at Amara, then at the paper again, and then back at Amara. Suddenly, the judge's voice changed. It was louder now, serious and full of fear. "We're stopping this trial," he said. "Now," gasps filled the room. "What's going on? Why did he stop? Is something wrong?" But the judge didn't answer anyone. He stood up and looked at the court officer. "Get the FBI on the phone." Immediately, the officer stared, confused. "The FBI, sir." "Yes," the judge said. "Tell them it's urgent. They need to get here now." Reporters started writing fast. Lawyers looked at each other, confused and nervous. The air felt heavy. Something big was happening, something no one expected. The judge looked back at Amara. "You're safe now," he said softly. "I promise." But Amara just looked down again. She didn't smile, she didn't cry. She said nothing to weeks earlier. A cold wind blew through the fields. It was past midnight when Officer Carla found the house. It was old and falling apart. There were no lights, no sounds, just silence. She stepped carefully inside, holding her flashlight. Then she saw her, a small girl sitting on the floor, alone. Her arms were around her knees. Her head was down, her skin was pale. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Hey, sweetie," Carla said, kneeling beside her. "Are you okay?" The girl didn't move. "Are you hurt?" Carla asked again. Still no answer. But when Carla touched her shoulder, the girl flinched. Her whole body shook, like she was afraid even of kindness. "Don't worry," Carla said gently. "You're safe now." They took her to the hospital. Doctors checked her. She had old bruises, a broken finger, burn marks on her back, and still, no words. She wrote only one sentence on the hospital whiteboard: "Don't trust anyone." Back in the courtroom, news about Amara spread fast. People online called her the silent girl. Some said she was a victim of kidnapping. Others believed she was part of something darker. She was brought to court for a custody hearing. The state had to decide who would take care of her. Her case was simple, or so it seemed. But now, everything had changed. The judge held the note tightly in his hands. He didn't show it to anyone yet, not even the lawyers. He just stared at it, then looked at Amara again. Behind her quiet eyes, there was fear, and something else, something broken. When the FBI arrived an hour later, the judge met them in his chambers. "This note," he said, handing it to the agent, "is not just a cry for help. It's a warning." The agent read it. "Slowly, they are watching. Even here. Don't trust the police. Don't speak out loud. They have ears everywhere." The agent looked up, serious. "Is she saying there are people inside the system?" The judge nodded. "That's exactly what she's saying." Another agent came into the room. "Sir," he said to his partner, "you're going to want to see this." We checked the courtroom, found a hidden camera behind the witness stand. The judge's eyes widened. "What? Someone is watching her." Even now, back in the hallway, Amara sat alone on a wooden bench. Her head leaned against the wall. Her hands were in her lap. She didn't look scared anymore. She looked tired. 2 FBI agents stood near her watching, but she didn't look at them. She didn't look at them. She was drawing on her notebook again. A small house, a figure in a window, a black car parked outside. And under the picture, she wrote one word: again. The FBI agents stayed in the courthouse for hours. Reporters were pushed outside. The courtroom was locked. Everyone wanted answers, but no one had any, except one person, Amara. She sat in a quiet room now. Across from 2 FBI agents, the judge had given them the note. The girl hadn't spoken a single word yet, but her words written on paper were louder than a scream. "They are watching. Even here. Don't trust the police. Don't speak out loud. They have ears everywhere." Agent Miller read the note again and again. "This girl is either very scared," he said, "or very smart." His partner, Agent Ramirez, nodded. "Or both." Amara sat across the table, holding her notebook tightly. She wasn't afraid of the FBI, but she didn't trust them either. She had learned the hard way. Not everyone in uniform is a friend. Flashback to 3 months ago. Amara was cleaning floors in a big house. The house was beautiful on the outside, but inside, it felt like a prison. There were no school books, no toys, no other children, only silence. The woman who lived there called her the help. She said Amara was lucky to live in such a rich place. But Amara wasn't free. She wasn't paid. She wasn't allowed to leave. Sometimes, at night, important-looking men came to the house. Some wore suits, some had badges. They never spoke to her, but they watched her like she was nothing, like she didn't matter. She heard them say things about deals, files, and keeping things quiet. That's when she started writing everything down. In her notebook, in secret, back in the FBI interview room of Agent Miller, gently pushed a pen and fresh notebook toward Amara. "We don't want to hurt you," he said kindly, "but we need to understand." Amara didn't say anything, but she picked up the pen. She started to draw. First, she drew the house tall with 4 windows and a big iron gate. Then she drew a man tall, bald, wearing a long coat. She added something on his chest, a badge. Under the drawing she wrote, "He gave me back." The agent stared at the words. "What does that mean?" Miller asked. "Gave you back?" Amara picked up the pen again. "I escaped once. He brought me back. He said I belonged there." Ramirez looked at Miller. "She escaped before, and a police officer returned her to those people." Amara nodded. Tears slowly ran down her cheeks. But, still, she didn't cry. In the judge's chambers, Judge Harold sat alone, holding the note again. He couldn't believe what he had read. He'd seen hundreds of cases, child abuse, corruption, even murder, but nothing like this. This was deeper, bigger. This was a network, something organized, protected, hidden inside the system. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was Agent Miller. "Judge, we have a serious problem," the agent said. "Tell me." "She says the man who brought her back wore a police badge. She drew it." The judge closed his eyes. "That means we have someone inside the force." "It gets worse," Miller said. "She says the house she escaped from belongs to someone with power, a name she heard often." "Who?" There was a pause. Then the agent said it. "Senator K." The judge froze. Senator Keegan was one of the most powerful men in the state. He was rich, respected, untouchable. Until now, in the interview room, Amara was still writing. The agents didn't rush her. She needed time. On the next page, she drew a basement. Inside, she drew 3 beds. And next to the beds, 3 girls. She wrote, "I was not the only one." Then she turned to a fresh page and wrote, "The others are still there." Ramirez leaned in. "Are you saying there are more children in that house?" Amara nodded. She wrote one more thing. "Hurry." Back at the courthouse lobby outside the courtroom, lawyers were panicking. One of the officers on duty, Officer Rick, suddenly left during his shift. He didn't answer his radio. He just vanished. One junior lawyer whispered to another, "You think he was part of it?" Nobody knew, but one thing was clear. Amara's note had started something. The system was cracking, and now, the truth was coming out. Later that night, Judge Harold sat at home, unable to sleep. He kept hearing Amara's words in his mind. "They are watching. Even here." He looked out his window. Across the street, a black car was parked. No one inside moved, no lights, just silence. He picked up his phone and called Agent Miller. "There's a black car outside my house," he said. "Stay inside." Miller replied, "We'll send backup, and Judge, this might get dangerous." "I know," the judge said quietly, "but that girl risked everything. I won't back down." Inside the FBI field office, the air was thick with tension. Files were being opened, photos laid out, maps pinned to boards. And in the middle of it all, a picture of a house, a big white mansion with black windows and tall iron gates. "Agent," Miller pointed to it, "this is where she says they kept her, and where other kids are still trapped." Agent Ramirez nodded. "We need to move fast. If what she says is true, we're not just looking at abuse, we're looking at a protected ring. Someone on the inside helped them." They both looked at the top right corner of the board. Senator K, he smiled from the photo. A powerful man. Loved on TV, but in Amara's drawings, he was always in the background watching. Silent, dangerous. Meanwhile, Amara sat quietly in her new foster home. It was a small house with kind people, but she didn't trust them yet. She didn't speak, not even a whisper. She spent most of her time writing. She drew faces, wrote names, made maps from memory. Each page of her notebook was a puzzle piece. The FBI called her drawings childish. But when they looked closer, they saw something else. She remembered everything. Flashback. Inside the mansion, Amara stood by a door in the basement. She was just 8 years old when she arrived there. A man had promised her mom a good school, a better life. But instead, Amara was taken. The house had rules: no speaking unless spoken to, no asking questions, no saying names. There were cameras in every hallway, guards in plain clothes, doors that only opened with special codes. And worst of all, some police officers visited the house often. They weren't there to help. They were part of it. She once saw a cop give money to the man who locked the doors. She didn't know his name, but he had a lion tattoo on his hand. She never forgot that tattoo. Back in the FBI office, Agent Ramirez flipped through Amara's drawings. One sketch stopped him cold. "Wait," he said. "I know this guy." The drawing showed a tall man with sunglasses and a lion tattoo on his hand. Miller checked the database. The man's name popped up. Officer Ray Dalton. He was still on duty, still patrolling streets, still wearing the badge, but he hadn't shown up to work since Amara's court appearance. "He's running," Ramirez said. "He knows we're coming." At the courthouse, Judge Harold was still under watch. The black car outside his home had disappeared, but now there were new threats. He received a letter with no return address. It read, "Stay quiet, Judge, or you'll regret it." No name, no signature, just those words. And a picture of Amara, sleeping in her bed. The judge called the FBI again. "They know where she is," he whispered. "They're still watching." Later that night at the foster home, Amara had a nightmare. She woke up sweating, breathing fast. Her notebook was still beside her. She grabbed a pen and drew again. This time it was a dark tunnel. 3 people walking. One of them carried a bag with something inside. She labeled it, "Tunnel under the kitchen. They used it to move us." The foster mom, Mrs. Bryant, knocked on the door. "Sweetie, are you okay?" Amara didn't answer, but she tore the page out and gave it to her silently. Next day that note changed everything. The FBI got a warrant and raided the mansion. They didn't go through the front door. They went under a tin to the tunnel Amara had drawn, and it was real. They found old clothes, bed sheets, chains. They found evidence, but not the children. They were gone. Back at the FBI, Amara looked at the news quietly. The raid was all over the TV. People were shocked. Some cried, others called it fake. Senator Kay denied everything. He said it was political. He said the girl was troubled, but Amara wrote only one word in her notebook: liar. Then something strange happened. An email was sent to the FBI. No name, no trace, just a video file. It showed a girl maybe 10 years old crying in a small room. Her hands were tied, and standing outside the door, Officer Ray Dalton. Final scene of Part 3. Judge Harold stood in his chambers, holding Amara's note in his hand again. He thought about the car, the threats, the tunnel, and that little girl, who never spoke, but told the truth louder than anyone ever could. He looked out the window. The shadows were still there, but now he was ready to fight them. And he wasn't alone. The house looked normal. Small lawn, yellow flowers, a white mailbox, but something didn't feel right. Inside, Amara sat by the window watching the trees. The wind moved the branches softly, like whispers. She hadn't drawn anything today. She hadn't slept either. Something was wrong. She could feel it. Mrs. Bryant, her foster mom, was in the kitchen making tea. The news played softly on the TV. Senator Keegan denies all involvement in the recent child trafficking investigation. He says he's being targeted unfairly. Meanwhile, FBI raids continue. Double quotes. Mrs. Bryant shook her head. These rich men think they can do anything and get away with it. Amara didn't say anything, but in her heart, she agreed. They could get away with it, unless someone stopped them. FBI headquarters. That same morning, Agent Miller stared at the video again, the one they received anonymously. A child, tied up, crying, locked in a small room, and standing guard. Officer Ray Dalton. They still hadn't found him. They had searched houses, hotels, airports, nothing. He had disappeared like a ghost, and now someone had sent this video. But who and why? Back at the foster house, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Bryant looked up. Strange. I wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door. A man stood outside wearing a delivery uniform. He held a box in his hands. "Package for Amara James," he said. Mrs. Bryant raised an eyebrow. "She doesn't have family. Who sent this?" The man shrugged. "It just says, private sender. I'm just the messenger." She signed for it and took the box inside, but when she turned around, the man was gone. No van, no footsteps, just gone. Amara sat up straighter. She looked at the box. Something about it made her nervous. Mrs. Bryant opened it slowly. Inside was a small white teddy bear and something taped to its back. A photo. Mrs. Bryant pulled it out. Her hands began to shake. It was a picture of Amara sleeping in her bed. Last night? Mrs. Bryant rushed to the phone. She called the FBI emergency number. Within minutes, black cars arrived. Agents surrounded the house, guns drawn, scanners active, but they found nothing. No cameras, no tracking devices. Just that photo and the bear. Judge Harold was informed immediately. He slammed his fist on the table. This means someone was inside her room. While we were watching her, while she was supposed to be safe, Agent Ramirez nodded. Whoever is behind this, they want us to feel small, like we can't protect her. They want her scared, the judge whispered. They want her silent. But Amara was already used to fear. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She just started drawing again. That night Amara sat with her notebook. This time, she didn't draw people. She drew eyes. Dozens of eyes. On walls, behind mirrors, in trees. Watching, always. Watching. Flashback to 1 month before escape, she remembered something she hadn't told the FBI. There was a man who didn't speak. He always wore black. He had a tattoo of a clock on his neck. He watched from behind the cameras. He watched when the others hurt the children. He never joined in, but he smiled. That smile haunted her. And that man she knew was the one watching her now. She turned the page and drew the tattoo. A clock. Hands frozen at 3:33. FBI office, 2 a.m. Agent Miller studied her new drawing. A clock tattoo. He asked. Ramirez searched the database. After 30 minutes, he found something. Name Brent Holloway. No job history. No ID records before 2015. But look, security footage shows him near the senator's events. always in the background. Miller's face turned cold. He's their fixer, their cleaner. He's the one they send to erase things, Ramirez whispered, and now he's watching her. Meanwhile, in a dark room somewhere, Brent Holloway stood in front of several monitors. One showed the judge, one showed the agents, one showed Amara's window. He touched the screen gently. She remembers too much, he muttered. A voice behind him said, then silence her. He didn't answer. He just smiled. That same cold smile Amara had drawn back at the foster home. Next morning, Amara handed Mrs. Bryant another page. This one had a list. 7 names. Names of other girls, and a message. They were taken to another house. I heard them say the farmhouse. The FBI launched a search. They found 3 properties owned by companies linked to Senator Keegan. One of them, a farmhouse, was just 40 miles away. The FBI vans moved fast down the empty road. The sky was still dark. No sun, no light. Only silence. Agent Miller checked his watch. 4:17 a.m. We go in quiet, he told the team. This place might still have children inside. All eyes were on the farmhouse up ahead. Old, broken windows. Paint peeling off the walls. But Amara's note had said, they took them there. That was enough. Back in the safe house, Samara sat with Mrs. Bryant. Her hands shook a little, but she kept writing. She had remembered something new. Another name. Annie. She was only 5. She pushed the page to Mrs. Bryant, who quickly called Agent Ramirez. At the farmhouse, the agents moved like shadows. One by one, they entered through the back door. The smell hit them. First old wood, mold, something worse. They found cages in the basement, chains on the wall, small clothes in a corner, but no children. Someone had already moved them. On the ground near one of the cages, Agent Miller found a small bracelet, pink, with beads that spelled Annie. He picked it up with shaken hands. She was here. Then a sound, a soft thud from above. The team rushed upstairs. Guns ready. They opened a locked door, and inside was a man tied to a chair, beaten, bloody, barely breathing. It was Officer Ray Dalton. Agent Ramirez stepped forward. Who did this to you? Dalton coughed blood. His lips trembled. She knows too much, Miller asked. Dalton whispered one name, Amara. At the safe house, 5:03 a.m., the power went out. Mrs. Bryant grabbed her phone. Stay close, Amara, don't move. But when she turned around, Amara was gone. The front door was wide open. Flashback 1 hour earlier, Amara sat in her room, staring at her notebook. She remembered a secret door. A voice had once told her, if you ever tell, we'll find you. We always do. She had drawn that door again and again. In her dreams, in her notes, now in her heart. She knew they were coming. She had to go before they reached her first. Somewhere in the forest, Amara ran through trees. Her feet hurt, her breath was short, but she kept moving. She had one goal. Reach the old church. That was where Annie had last been taken. Amara had overheard the guards. Deliver the new ones to the church. It's safer now. It was her turn to save someone else. Back at the farmhouse, Dalton was fading fast. The agents tried to question him. Who's behind it? Who's the man with the clock tattoo? Dalton laughed weakly. You think he's the boss? He shook his head. He's just a shadow. What do you mean? Ramirez asked. Dalton whispered. You're chasing ghosts. But the monster is already inside your house. Then, his eyes closed. He was gone. FBI headquarters. An alert popped up on Agent Miller's phone. Amara is missing. He stood up so fast his chair fell over. Lock every road. Check all cameras. She must not disappear. But deep down, he knew. She had remembered something. She had gone to finish it. Inside the church, before sunrise, Amara pushed open the door. The church was cold and empty. Broken glass on the floor. Old benches covered in dust. But under the altar, she saw a trapdoor. She climbed down carefully and found them. 5 children, hiding, shivering eyes, full of fear. She whispered gently, it's okay. I'm here. One little girl near and to her. You came, she said. Amara smiled for the first time in weeks. I promised I would. But then, a sound above. Footsteps. The door creaked open. And standing there was Brent Holloway, the man with the clock tattoo. His voice echoed, well, well. The quiet girl found her voice. The air inside the old church was heavy. The children huddled together in fear. Amara stood in front of them like a shield. Brent Holloway, the man with the clock tattoo, stood at the top of the stairs. His black boots echoed on the wooden floor. You really thought you could save them all, little girl? He said softly. Amara didn't speak. She just stepped back, protecting the children behind her. Brent smiled. That's the thing about truth, he said. Sometimes, it dies before anyone hears it. He reached for something in his coat, but he wasn't alone. Outside the church, FBI cars screeched to a stop. Agents jumped out, shouting, Go, go, move in. Agent Miller ran through the doors. He saw the trapdoor open. He didn't wait. He ran straight down. Back underground, Brent pulled out a small device, a phone. He showed it to Amara. Say one word, and this whole place goes up in flames, he warned. Do you understand? Amara didn't blink. Her eyes stared into his like steel. Then, a loud voice from behind. Drop it. Agent Miller stormed in, gun drawn. Brent turned slowly. You don't get it, Brent said. You're chasing shadows. I'm just a tool, Miller replied coldly. Then let's break the hand that holds the tool. Brent's smile faded, and he dropped the device. The other agents rushed in. They took the children outside. Brent was arrested on the spot. But as they pulled him away, he whispered something to Amara. He's watching us both. FBI headquarters later that day the children were safe. Food, warmth, beds. But Amara didn't rest. She wrote a new note. She handed it to Agent Ramirez. It read, Brent is not the one giving orders. I saw the man once. He wore a suit. He had a red ring on his finger. He smiled at the pain. His name? I never heard it. But I know his face. Meanwhile, Judge Harold's office, the judge poured a cup of coffee. His hands were shaking. He thought about the note Amara had sent him. The biggest name is still hiding, and he wears a suit. He stared at the list of powerful men who had spoken out in the media, all pretending to be shocked, all pretending to care. But one name stood out. Senator Keegan. Senator Keegan's office. That night he sat in a leather chair, watching the news. More children rescued, the anchor said. FBI closes in on suspects. The senator turned off the TV. He poured a drink. Behind him, a bodyguard stood silently. Do you think they know yet? The senator asked. The guard shook his head. They're still chasing ghosts. Keegan smirked. Then let them chase. He raised his hand to drink. And on his finger was a red ring. Back at the FBI agent, Miller called Judge Harold. She says she saw the man once. Wears a suit, red ring. Sound familiar? The judge didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he said quietly, Senator Keegan wears one. He's worn it for years. It's his family symbol. Miller's voice dropped. Then we might have our man. But Ramirez cut in. Not so fast. He's protected, powerful. We need hard proof. The next morning, Amara said, Mrs. Bryant brought her breakfast. But Amara didn't eat. She was drawing again. This time, a memory, a big room, a party, men in suits, laughter. In the middle, Senator Keegan, smiling. And in the back, a crying girl being led away. Amara had seen it all. From a vent above the room, she had drawn the scene perfectly. Even the carpet, the gold pattern on the walls. FBI analysis room. Miller held the drawing next to a photo. He looked at the pattern on the rug. Then, at the photo of the senator's private estate from years ago. Exact match. Ramirez's eyes widened. This proves she was there. She saw it all. Now they needed more. Back at the judge's office, Harold made a call. An old contact. Someone inside Keegan's inner circle. He asked for a favor. I need security footage. Anything from his estate. A party years ago. The contact hesitated, then whispered, if I give you this, I'll need protection. He destroys anyone who talks. The judge promised it. That night the footage arrived, and on it, just as Amara had drawn, a girl being dragged away, and in the center of the room Senator Keegan, watching it happen. FBI Command Center. Midnight. The screen showed a blinking red dot moving fast across the map. His plane just crossed into international airspace, Ramirez said, frustrated. Agent Miller's jaw tightened. He knew we were coming. Had just received solid proof. Senator Keegan was at the center of everything. The video, Amara's drawing, the red ring. And now, he was running. Safe house. Amara's room. Amara sat in silence. She held her small notebook close, staring at the page she had drawn again and again. A circle with wings. The symbol from the wall behind the senator at the party. That symbol haunted her. Mrs. Bryant walked in. You should sleep, Amara. But Amara wrote something quickly and handed it to her. He's not running alone. Someone is helping him. Meanwhile, in the air inside the private jet, Senator Keegan sipped wine and stared out the window. A man sat across from him, face in the shadows. She drew that scene perfectly, the senator said, shaking his head. Unbelievable, the man replied. You underestimated her. Keegan laughed. She's just a child. The man leaned forward. His voice was cold. No, she's the key. He pulled out a black briefcase and opened it. Cash and a list of names. Phase 2 begins now. The man whispered. Judge Harold's home. 3:12 a.m. The judge couldn't sleep. He paced the floor, reading the file again and again. The system was too slow, too broken. He called Agent Miller. If we don't catch him now, we never will. Miller's voice was tired but firm. We'll find him, even if we have to chase him to the ends of the earth. Harold whispered. Just promise me. Protect Amara. Next morning, FBI briefing room. Agent Ramirez played the jet's flight data on the screen. He's headed toward a private island near the Bahamas. No extradition treaty, no local police. Miller nodded. Then we're going off. The books. Ramirez frowned. That's dangerous. Miller replied. So is letting monsters walk free. The island. Later that day, Keegan's jet landed on a private airstrip. Guards waited. Cars rolled down a dirt road to a massive mansion near the beach. Inside, everything was perfect. Clean floors, expensive art. But behind one locked door, children, 6 of them, tied, scared. Keegan looked in through the glass. No more mistakes, he said. We move them again tonight. The shadowy man beside him nodded. But Keegan didn't notice. One of the children had something in her hand, a torn page with a name. Amara. Flashback. 3 months ago, that little girl had met Amara once. Just for a moment, in a basement that they had passed each other in silence, but Amara had whispered one word before she was taken away. Now that girl held onto the note like it was fire in the darkness. Back at the FBI, Amara stood in front of a map. She pointed to the island. She didn't speak, just stared at the spot with sad, sharp eyes. She remembers it, Ramirez said. She's been there. They had no legal way to storm the island, but Amara had drawn every hallway, every door. The team studied it for hours. Then Miller said, "We move at night. Midnight raid. The island under the cover of darkness." Black helicopters flew low. Miller, Ramirez, and a small team dropped silently into the trees. They used Mara's map, through the back fence, past the kitchen, into the basement, just like she had drawn. Inside the mansion, Kagan sat with the shadowy man, drinking. He looked at the news on his phone. The world was talking about him. Suspicions, questions, but no charges, no proof yet. Suddenly, boom, the back door exploded. Smoke filled the hallway. Agents stormed in. Keegan tried to run, but Ramirez tackled him down hard, blood on his face. Wrists in cuffs. Miller kicked open the basement door and found the children. Some cried, some just stared. He carried one out in his arms. They were all safe now. The shadowy man was gone. No one saw him escape, no fingerprints, no ID, but something was left behind, a burned envelope. Inside it was a photo of Amara, with the words written on the back. "We remember her." Final scene back in the U.S. Cajun was in a high prison. The story was on every channel, but Amara wasn't watching. She sat under a tree outside the safe house, drawing quietly. This time, she drew the sun. For the first time in months, she smiled. Mrs. Bryant sat beside her. "You saved them, Amara?" Amara nodded slowly, then wrote her final words in the notebook. "But the man in the shadows is still out there." The world was finally talking. News anchors everywhere repeated the same shocking truth. Senator Keegan arrested for crimes against children. The case that started with a silent girl's note has shaken the nation. But behind the headlines, not everything was over. Because Amara's final words still rang in Agent Miller's ears. The man in the shadows is still out there. FBI headquarters 2 weeks later. Agent Ramirez walked into Miller's office with a folder. No ID on the man who escaped the island. She said, "No name, no passport, no trace." Miller opened the folder. Photos, prints, recordings, nothing, like he was never there. Ramirez whispered, but Amara had drawn his face. That meant he was real. Safe house, Amara's room. Amara sat by the window. She wasn't afraid anymore, but she wasn't at peace either. She drew again. This time, a small box with wires. She handed it to Mrs. Bryant. "It's what the man used when he gave orders," she explained through writing. Mrs. Bryant called the FBI. The box looked simple, but when tech experts opened it, they found something terrifying. It was connected to over 30 devices, across 9 countries. Back at the FBI, Miller stared at the map of connections. "He's not just a man," he said. Ramirez nodded. "He's part of a system, a secret one." Judge Harold walked in. He looked tired. "Older? You're hunting a shadow," he said, "but shadows hide in light too." He placed an envelope on the table. "A letter arrived at my office this morning. No return address." Inside was a photo of Keegan behind bars, and one sentence written in red ink. "You got one puppet, but the puppeteer is still smiling." Cut 2. Somewhere unknown, the man with the shadowy face stood inside a high-rise building. He looked out over a big city. On his wrist was a watch with the same clock symbol Brent Holloway once wore as a tattoo. He smiled as a file was placed in front of him. Inside Amara's photos, drawings, FBI reports. "She remembers too much," he said. A voice from the dark replied, "Do we take her out?" The man answered calmly, "No, we watch her. She's useful." Safe house. That night Amara had a nightmare. She woke up sweating. In the dream, she was back in the basement, but this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood the man with the clock symbol. Watching, waiting. When she opened her eyes, she ran to her notebook. She wrote one sentence, "He's not done." FBI. One final meeting. Ramirez showed Miller a case from another city. Similar signs, similar missing children, different names, different faces, but the same clock symbol. Miller nodded. Slowly, "This wasn't just about Keegan. This is bigger." Ramirez looked over at the map. "So what do we do now?" Miller picked up Amara's last drawing, the one with the sun. He smiled slightly. "Now we bring light to every shadow." 1 year later, Amara's new life. Amara was now living with a new family. A real home. She went to school, had books, laughed. Sometimes, she still didn't talk, but she smiled more. She also wrote a book, with help from Mrs. Bryant. The Girl Who Drew the Truth. It became a bestseller. People from all over the world read her story. She didn't just save children, she woke the world up.